So this is happening right now in Minneapolis. This is just pretty much a breaking thing. So Minneapolis City Council says it will disband the police force. Now, so less than 2 weeks since the killing of George Floyd, 9 of the 12 members, which I've seen a couple different reports. Some people are saying it's 13. Others are saying it's 12. But whatever, it's a veto-proof majority. And I think the word they're looking for is proof. What article did I pick? Wow, I might have really shit the bed here. I sift through different ones before I pick one. And I'm just like, I want the one that says poof. And I want that one. I stand with the underdog, damn it. So, all right. So they have a veto-proof majority or a veto-proof majority, tomato. And so what they're saying here, we are here today to begin the process of ending the Minneapolis Police Department and creating a new transformative model for cultivating safety in Minneapolis. They're going to take immediate steps towards ending the Minneapolis Police Department. Now, it's not clear yet what that process will entail exactly, how long it will take, what the end result will be. Now, and this is, so what they're saying is the goal is to end policing as we know it and recreate systems that actually keep us safe. Now, this has happened in different cities before. One of those cities being, I believe, Camden, New Jersey. And here's what happened when they did that in Camden. So check this out. Camden, New Jersey. Camden, New Jersey also disbanded their police department in 2013. Homicides dropped by 50% to the lowest number since 1987. Crime dropped even more drastically. The police department is now smaller, paid less, and handcuffs / any weapon is a last resort. And as this person points out, and it's true, this is common around the world. This is usually how police forces operate around the world, compared to ours. So disbanding the police means different things in different places. We'll see what it's going to mean in Minneapolis. So this is definitely good news, I would say. But I think as citizens, it's really, I think it's our duty now to say, okay, what is disbanding? How exactly? Because now the way I see it, we're sitting on an opportunity now. And we're sitting on an opportunity to really say, okay, this is what this is going to mean. This isn't just going to mean you're just going to disband this police and then you're going to replace it with another, systemically rot system where the same problem is eventually going to happen. It's not going to happen for a little while because, people are really paying attention, but we're not really going to do anything to address the system here. Mm-hmm. So the same thing will inevitably happen. This is an opportunity to say, okay, we're done. We are completely, we're done with this. We're disbanding it. We're defunding it. We're demilitarizing it. And we're starting again. And here's what that means. So what are your guys' take? Like, what are some true systemic solutions for this thing?
Well, one thing would be is, you don't need armed officers for every situation. You know what I mean? I mean, like, you don't need a guy with a gun to come to your house because, of a noise complaint or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like every situation in our country, you're encouraged to call armed people to come to your house or to come to you, and that's completely unnecessary. Like I've seen a lot of cops even say that, they'll go their whole careers without ever even really using their gun. So if that's the case, then they don't need them. So we can have, maybe we can have like an organization, a community-based organization of, unarmed people who can, help with these situations where, it's not necessary. And then most of these police forces around the world, they don't bring in armed forces unless it's absolutely necessary.
Why do you need a gun because someone's having a house party?
Yeah.
It makes no sense. Yeah. Like, there's worse things in the world than loud music,
The only thing that could happen is a drunken mistake. That's the only thing that can happen in that situation. Someone's just like, yeah, we're having a good time, bang, bang. And it's like, oh, that's going to come down. That's not, that wasn't good that you just did that. That wasn't cool at all. Just like, why does a town of 9,000 need a tank?
Also, I think domestic violence is a big thing. And I want to speak, like, making sure I don't try to, I'm not an expert, and I don't want to pretend I am. But one area I do know about is domestic violence because I was a domestic violence worker for a long time. And oftentimes, I think, and people get very scared because I see, and I think it's genuine because it's hard to get in, like, we're all so socialized that we need law enforcement. So I understand getting a new idea is hard. And one of the big things people say is, what about domestic violence victims? What if and I understand the compassion people have when they bring up that concern. But just for myself, as someone who worked in domestic violence for a long time, I will tell you that the police are not useful at all. And in fact, they make it worse. And there's a huge, like, enmity almost between well, not almost, there is, between domestic violence workers and police in a lot of places, because oftentimes, they do see us as enemies, and police, I don't work there anymore, but I did for a long time. And police oftentimes hate domestic violence workers because the number one profession for abusers is police. So they're not really there to help us. They feel like we're hurting their friends, and they always feel like, oh, she lied. That's my coworker. He would never do that. So it's really dangerous to how, if you have a domestic violence victim in your program, whose partner is or abuser is a police officer, everyone's on red alert. Every worker, every client, every volunteer, everyone's life is in danger, and we know that. So I feel like I understand the compassion people have when they bring up that concern, but in real life, it hasn't helped. And the other thing with domestic violence calls is, there's a lot of police officers, they have to arrest if anyone's injured. So there's so a lot of times when a victim is being assaulted, they use reactive force. So they get to the home and the victim isn't bleeding, because you don't always bleed from being assaulted. But maybe I shouldn't say she, but they scratch their abuser, and the abuser's bleeding like here. A scratch is not an offensive wound, it's a defensive wound, and but because he's or they, whoever the abuser is injured, the victim gets arrested. So a lot of in domestic violence calls, police almost always arrest both parties, or sometimes just the victim. So it's really not helping in that situation. A lot of police officers have something like domestic response teams, volunteers who are social workers who go out with them, and they do better work than the police officers do. So I feel like it's unfortunate that they're volunteers. They should get paid for their work, but I feel that and even in saying that, I think there's a lot of racial injustice in the social work world that we have to also look at. I'm not trying to put social services on I'm not saying we're innocent, because I think there's a lot of problems in our world too. But police are really not helpful in situations of domestic violence. So if that could give people some peace in being worried about that, it actually will make it better.
No, I mean that's in essential, that's a huge important point, because that's the number one thing people throw out there. And I, like you were saying, I get it, because I understand there are situations that happen in our world where, the use of force or whatever it may be is absolutely 100% unavoidable and necessary for the safety of a populace. I get that. But, so what I think needs to happen, and, this has been on, I think, everyone's mind a lot the past couple of weeks, is first of all, a complete demilitarization and kind of a reassessment on what it means to have police and what it means. Like Lenny's saying, why does everybody need a gun? Everybody doesn't. The person who pulls you over, why do they need a gun? The person who's just, kind of making sure that like people are just going about their business and no one's harming anyone, why do they need a gun? Now, someone who's called to a domestic abuse situation, or a situation where there is somebody with a gun who may be mentally unstable. I mean, we should have designations for this. We should have specialized, where that person who responds to that type of call has been trained for years, has been properly screened, understands what it means to defend both themselves and other people, is accompanied by a mental health professional who I think should be a paid salary person as well. You just have, I guess the most basic, simple way to put it is aces in their places. And let's make sure these are actual aces. Let's make sure these are people who are trained properly and have gone through years of extensive screening and training courses and the whole 9 yards to be able to handle these types of things. And that's not going to be the same person who pulls you over for a busted taillight.
Yeah.
Or who gets a call because someone was allegedly using a counterfeit $20 bill or whatever it may be. And
we should never arrive at that situation. I kind of feel like that was not an emergency situation. They should not have been there ever. so what if there's a counter, like it wasn't even counterfeit, right? But so what if there was?
Right. Right.
You
Right.
know,
Right.
there's insurance for that. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I fully agree. I fully agree. Or what if we had actual peace officers who would designate it to handle something like that? Where they're just like, okay, this is a counterfeit $20 bill. You guys just go about your way and go about your business. And, in a perfect world, they would just replace it right then and there. They would just assume, they're like, okay, nobody knew that this gets into circulation. It happens. Here's a real $20 bill. Have a nice day, everybody. And we have a fund that handles this and replenishes it. So no big deal. And that would be the end of it. And the other big thing that I've been really, and let me get your guys' opinion on this. I think one of the first things we need to do, I think the very first thing, completely demilitarize. And then the next step is to reinvent what having law enforcement in our lives means, which means the concept of a police officer as we know it becomes a thing of the past that our kids and grandkids learn about in history books. And their response is, how crazy is it a job like that even existed? Now we have peace officers and some of these trained, like professionals that handle combat situations. I've never even met one of those in person. I know they exist in case of an emergency. I've never even met one of them, though. I have no idea who even has that job. You know what I mean? Like, and the other big thing I think to accomplish that is we have an elected board of civilians that, and I think it should be a paid job because it's not going to be easy having this position. And I think that civilian board kind of directs how police is conducted, what kind of police a community has. And again, this is a board that is elected by the people, that answers to the people. And these have to be civilians. These cannot be people that are in law enforcement themselves. They have to be separate and they are elected and they dictate, this is what we want from law enforcement. This is how we want this handled. This is how we want a traffic citation handled. And this is who we want handling it. And this is how we want a domestic violence call handled. And this is who we want handled. These are the mental health professionals we want beside them. And whenever there is any type of report of, police misconduct, no matter how small or severe it is, that board decides whether or not they keep their job. And if there is further punishment for that police officer, they are treated just like a regular citizen. Oh, and by the way, you know what are two separate things? Whether or not that police officer keeps their job and further punishment. Because the board might decide, hey, guess what? Technically, what you did in this situation was self-defense, but we don't think you needed to beat this person to a pulp because they, whatever the situation is. I'm just making up for instances in my head. But maybe the court of law decided that something was self-defense. Because, I mean, honestly, I think our self-defense laws are very, very, very lenient in this country. But that's a different topic for a different day. That could be a totally different topic for a different day. But I think they're very lenient. So the board might decide, you know what? That's fine. The court of law said that was self-defense. But we voted, you ain't a police officer anymore. You're done. So I think that needs to happen. And anything less, you're just asking for the same thing to happen again. What do you guys think?
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that, but I think also to take it even further, I mean, normally I support unions, but these police unions have way too much power and they abuse their power, and they have even in instances where you have maybe an oversight board, these police unions have influence over them, and a lot of times these boards just go along with the police anyway. So I mean, I'm not exactly sure what it would entail, but that whole system needs to be reformed as well.
Oh yeah. The police union system.
Because imagine if every time there's an incident, I mean, I believe in defunding over reform, but just imagine that there was every time any police officer uses force or murders somebody or abuses someone or injures somebody, everyone's pay gets docked. Your chief, everyone above you get something pulled out of their pay and their pension because they didn't train you right. Everyone who works with you gets something taken out of their pay and their pension because they didn't report you. And then you get something pulled out of your pay. You get fired, hopefully, but everybody gets, a punishment for that. There's because that's the big thing with the police, right? It's like such a fraternity that no one's telling on each other. And the ones who do get pushed out. So that's why you can't be a good cop, because if you be a good cop, you're gonna lose your job anyway. Like being a good cop means you have to retire earlier. You know what I mean? Like it's also,
oh no, totally.
But if everyone lost money, like there's no greater loyalty than to your paycheck and your bank account. You know, everyone's got you need rent, you got family to feed. But the union protects them from ever having to have those kind of consequences. But if everyone had to pay something, they'll be ratting on each other in no time. You're not gonna, you know what I mean? Like if you're gonna touch someone's money, they're gonna change. You know?
Well, what if we did this then? The Civilian Oversight Board, they get paid hourly. So that means if police are assholes, I mean, they get a salary, but they also have like an hourly, like, hey, if police have a bunch of misconduct and we need to be meeting to figure all this stuff out, that's taking more hours out of our day-to-day operations. So we get time and a half, and that comes out of their paycheck.
Ooh.
Right? What if we did that? What if it's just like, hey, we have to deliberate on this stuff because, you know, like abusive power Magoo over there is being an asshole. So we're deliberating. We're spending all this time figuring out what to do. Oh, by the way, he's fired, but we're figuring out what else to do. That's taking time. So we get time and a half, and it's coming out of all of your paychecks. Or better yet, that time and a half, some of it goes to them for their time, and the rest goes into social services, and it's taken directly out of the police officers' paychecks. I'm for it. I'm for it.
Yeah, but you can't do that because of police unions. Police unions are so powerful that it's really right now, like, you know, we have to. I'm trying to find the right word, but there's such a huge force that it's hard to pass something like that or even propose it because they'll defend the police.
Yeah, I mean, the word I've been trying to use is like reinvent, because it's like, I mean, everyone said reform. And it's like, no, reform, we're past that. It's too late. It's too little too late. We can't reform this. You know, I mean, it's a systemic disease. That's why it's like the whole like, oh, bad apples. It's like, no, that's not, you're missing. That's like we have an E. coli outbreak and you take one shred of lettuce and you're like, this one's fine. Like that's not, it's a systemic disease.
People forget the rest of the phrase. It's a few bad apples spoil the bunch.
Right?
So people are misusing that phrase. Like they forget that there's another side half of that sentence.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together